The Saints have the best offense in football. The Eagles' defense stinks. Is there any hope for Vic Fangio's crew? Fran Duffy breaks it down, and we hear from Zach Berman at the NovaCare Complex, plus Swooper Week 2 coming up next on the PHLY podcast presented by Bet365. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Thursday afternoon. Bo Wulf, Fran Duffy, Zach Berman to come, and of course, we are presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. And Fran, you know, when you get a short week in this summer, it's like, how are we going to fill the episodes? How are we going to cram everything in this week? 4 days to get into everything we need to get into. We got a lot to get to today.
Yep.
Breaking down the Saints, everything that you have seen from them on film. One of the best offense in football through 2 weeks. We'll try to figure out why that is, what Dennis Allen does on defense, a traditionally very good defense. We're going to hear from Zach Berman. We haven't talked since we heard from Nick Sirianni explaining that he's more convicted than ever in his position to kick the field goal to go up 6. We heard from Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore today. We'll find out what Zach thinks about all of that and what's going on in the locker room. And then we'll close with week 2 of Swooper Soarcasting. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Like you said, it's a lot to cram into not just today's episode, but into 4 days. I'm not going to lie. The Monday night, the short week, it hit me hard this week. So I'm struggling, but we're going to power through.
And poor Zach's, you know, he's going to have his early morning flights to New Orleans coming back. Next week is the day that the book comes out.
Yes.
The franchise, which you can buy wherever books are sold. We'll talk a little bit about that perhaps on this show as well, and obviously getting more into that next week. But let's get right to it.
Yes.
Fran, let's talk about the Saints offense, because I think that is the big question heading into this game. Through 2 games, best offense in football, 4.3 points per drive, which for context sake, number 1 in the league last year was 2.7. 1.7 EPA per drive, 0.8 was the top in the league last year. So there's some regression due. There's no way that they can continue to play at this level. But structurally, weapons-wise, Klint Kubiak is the guy who has taken over this offense, and they're playing much differently than they did last year. Play action, they're number 2 in the league. They were 32nd in the league last year. Is it as simple as, they've brought along the Kyle Shanahan style of offense, brought it to New Orleans, and now all of a sudden they're good?
If you wanted to glaze over that way, yes.
It's almost that simple, really.
It is almost that simple. Klint Kubiak's pushing all the right buttons. And honestly, when watching them on film week 1 against Carolina, and then getting ready for that game against Dallas, I was obviously the Eagles playing Monday night, was home on Sunday on the couch with Francis. He and I were watching the game together, and this team is so balanced offensively. And a lot of people think of balance as run-pass balance, but it's more than that. You think back to like the Eagles in 2022 when they were absolutely humming offensively, and it was every play, it was going to be something a little different. Maybe it's a vertical shot, then it's an RPO, then it's an inside run, and then it's a screen, and then you got misdirection, and then you got you have this, you have that. The way that they are able to just completely spread things out from the way that they are trying to be multiple offensively, and they have so many players that are versatile in that way, it makes them very, very difficult to try and figure out what their tendencies are on any given down and distance.
And especially because, they've been so productive, that means they've also been playing from ahead. We haven't seen them in sort of like a neutral situation in the second half of a game, right? Where do you start if you're Vic Fangio this week?
So typically, and I'll peek behind the curtain here, okay? I went into this thinking, okay, I'm going to do what Vic Fangio and the defensive staff, the quality control coaches would try and do. And then when Taysom Hill, the injury seemed a little bit more serious than I was anticipating, I kind of scrapped that idea. Because basically what the coaches are doing right now, or what they did Monday, the quality control coaches, it's not just as simple as, hey, you know what? They're in 12 personnel this number of times. When they are in 21 personnel, this is what they like to do. When they're in 11 personnel, this is what they like to do. They have so many different combinations of those groupings. And so what they do out of 12 personnel when it's, when it's Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau is different than if it's Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau, or if it's Taysom Hill and Juwan Johnson. Then you also might consider Taysom Hill to be a fullback, because there are plenty of times where he's the lone running back on the field lining up in the I formation, but then on the next play, he's lined up as an outside receiver running a vertical route. So it's a lot to try and figure out.
Best player in football.
Look, I actually forgot that he's 34 years old. I didn't know that until like the injury. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he came in. He was so old when he came into the NFL. So he's 34 years old. But I actually very much enjoy watching him in this offense. As this offense is becoming. So, but just watching how they're using him in this offense, a lot of credit to Klint Kubiak and that staff. You
do worry when you get a guy named Klint Kubiak. You got to go to the Wikipedia to see what the middle initial starts with. You don't want that to be another K.
You would
it's
hope
Alexander.
That they would know better.
It's Alexander, yes. So we're clear on that front. Okay. One of the things that they have done, tracing back to the Niners' roots, they're going with all these heavy personnel packages. As you said, last year they were right now they're 32nd in the league in 11 personnel snaps, just 22%, which they were pretty low last year too. Yes, but and Taysom Hill is part of that, but they have leaned really heavily into, as you said, the 12 and 21, third in the league in both of those. They're in 12 is their plurality of their snaps. But you're saying that it's not just as simple as 12. It's there's all these different
versions of it. Yes.
And so, do you think that in this game, Vic Fangio is going to be thinking we can stay in base? That's what we're going to be living in this game.
I think that, they're going to play more base than what they've played. I would say that with
like
pretty certainty. Yes, and I think that's where you're going to get into your 5-2. And so you're going to have the 2 edge rushers on the outside with the 3 defensive tackles on the interior. Now, that is the difference. Because if you're just looking at this from a pure aesthetic standpoint, you might look at this matchup and say, the Eagles have no chance at stopping the Saints offense, right? With the way that the Saints are running the football.
That's how it looks right now.
The play action, the way that they're playing, it's tough to feel confident going in. The way that the Eagles have tackled, the way that they've handled the run game, it's tough to feel confident. Here's the difference. Last week, the Atlanta Falcons were in 11 personnel the entire game. That's what we talked about that in the show. The adjustment they made in the second half, the Eagles, was, okay, we're still going to stay in our nickel package with 4 down linemen and 2 linebackers, but we're going to take one of those linebackers and we're going to put them on the line of scrimmage and make it a 5-1 nickel defense as opposed to a 4-2. Try and change up the numbers from the zone blocking standpoint and see if we can kind of throw off the offense that way. In this game, if they're going to play with a lot of heavy personnel, well, now you're going to probably match that with your base defense. You're already going to be in that odd front. How are the Eagles going to better defend the run out of their base personnel? It's kind of like what we were saying, too, the other day about Jordan Davis. That was not a big, Jordan Davis game against the Atlanta Falcons.
This one kind of is.
This one, I think you're going to see more of Jordan Davis, and it's going to be more important for Jordan Davis to be a factor in this matchup.
So what would you do?
You have to play base. I think you have to play the base defense in this
5-2 or 5-1 nickel?
5-2. No, okay. I think you play 5-2 in this one. And again, if Taysom Hill does not play, so he had a chest injury late in the game, ended up going to a Dallas area hospital afterwards, and he ended up making it back with the team, did not practice on Wednesday. We'll wait to see what his status is here today. But Dennis Allen said yesterday that they're hoping that he'll be able to go. Doesn't sound great if your 34-year-old was in the hospital after the game and didn't practice the first 2 days of the week, but I guess that remains to be seen. But that said, if you go in and you say, okay, they're gonna play a lot of heavy personnel, they've seen the most base defense in the league so far. I think that will carry in to this matchup. I think you're gonna play those heavy, but you're gonna try and match that base offense with your base defense.
And so personnel-wise, the way that guys are playing right now, Jordan Davis in the middle, Jalen Carter and Milton Williams.
Yep.
I mean, are you leaning more on Brandon Graham on the outside if you're expecting this to be a run game, or Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat? Can you trust Bryce Huff?
Yeah, I mean, Vic Fangio said today that he's still a starter.
Yeah,
but he's still a starter. Is he a starter in nickel?
Yeah.
Is he a starter in base?
Right.
He might just be saying that early on. We don't know exactly how truthful he is when it comes to the depth chart stuff. So that we'll kind of see. As we talked about the other day, I do feel like Nolan Smith has earned more reps than Bryce Huff at this point because of how he's playing against the run.
Especially on early downs, right?
Yes, and so I think that he's a guy you can trust a little bit more in that phase of the game.
Okay, and so obviously, not only are they running the ball very well, but they are creating a lot of explosive plays out of this play action. How are they getting those plays open downfield? How will the Eagles prepare for that?
When you watch the film against Dallas this past week, you just see guys running free, so much space, and especially between the linebackers and the safeties, there was just all this green grass. And a lot of that does have to do with the fact that you had to respect the run. 50% of their pass plays are off play action. It's absurd. It's all play action with the Saints offense. They have had 22 dropbacks this season in 2 games without play action. That's
like the why don't they build the whole plane out of the black box offense?
But look, it is working really, really well for them, and they're keeping defenses on their toes. There was a stat from Next Gen that had to do with just how their ability to negate opposing pass rushes, and honestly, that's what the problem has been with the Eagles, is that if you can't stop the run, that is going to impact your ability to be able to get after the quarterback. And so I think when you look at this matchup, that is going to be item number one. Like, you have to be able to stop this Saints running game.
Okay. Now, obviously, the pass rush has struggled.
Yep.
And we can get to Vic Fangio saying, like, you got to earn the right to run the rush the passer. But from do we need to press buttons do we need to blitz if the front four are not getting home in this game? What's your answer there?
They lead the league in cover 0 so far, and from a percentage standpoint.
Really?
Did you know that, the Eagles?
I did not know that.
If you would have told me that 3 weeks ago, I would have been shocked. And I don't think that would have been a good thing.
I think there's only one way to read that.
Yeah, it hasn't been a good thing because honestly, when they have gone 0, they've given up at least 2 touchdowns.
CJ on both of them, right?
Right, CJ on both. So, I don't think you're going to see a ton of blitzing against this team. Derek Carr historically has not been good under pressure. This scheme has done a nice job of not allowing him to be pressured because so he is constantly moving the pocket. He's actually second in the NFL behind only Jalen Hurts in terms of throwing from the run. Now, a lot of that is by design. It's a lot of designed rollouts, a lot of designed play action. So trying to get him out of the pocket, get him moving, defined reads. And this is a guy that historically, number one, has not been good against pressure, but number two, has also been a very conservative thrower. But every game, it has been bombs away for Derek Carr, especially in the first half of games. Tom Brady actually said on the broadcast early on in this game, right before he threw a touchdown to Rashid Shaheed, he said, look, this offense is built on trying to score points early. Look for them to be aggressive in this game. Obviously, he was not in the production meetings. And so just, that's him kind of just reading between the lines there in terms of how they want to be schematically and philosophically. Lo and behold, the very next play, it's
Klint Kubiak just popping strawberries in his mouth.
Yeah.
Tom's not here, so I can eat these.
Well, Rashid,
the nightshade offense.
Look, every game so far, Shaheed has been a factor down the field. He's in motion all the time in this offense. Number 22 at wide receiver, aesthetically pleasing there in that way, a little bit different. But I think when you're looking at Shaheed and Olave, 2 legit speed receivers, 4-3 guys that have the ability to attack you vertically.
Are we feeling confident in Slay?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're feeling confident in Slay. To me, the big thing is that you've got to be able to get this team behind the sticks, and that means like stopping the run, getting into 2nd and 9, 3rd and 12, 2nd and 7. Like you want to be able you don't want it to be 2nd and 3 all the time. And if you're able to do that, does the pass rush then win? You have to at least test that from New Orleans' standpoint. They haven't been tested in that way.
So tell me what your thoughts on that were. You got to earn the right to rush the passer.
Yeah,
stop the run on early downs.
Nick Sirianni said it after the game on Monday night, and then Vic Fangio talked about that today in terms of the ability to how when you are giving up plays against the run, and then it's play action and all that goes with it, that affects your ability to get after the quarterback. And it actually goes to a stat that I saw on Next Gen Stats earlier today, and I do want to pull that up. There was a let me pull this up here. Here we go. So this is from Next Gen. The Saints' high number of snaps with a quarterback under center and play action has led to a slower average get-off time for opposing pass rushers. So, again, this is all like based off like the GPS tracking data.
That's the whole point of play action,
the whole
right?
thing.
Yeah.
So the Saints have faced an average get-off time of 1.00 seconds by opposing edge rushers. That's the second slowest in football, and an average get-off time of 1.29 seconds by opposing interior rushers. That's nearly a full 1/10 of a second slower faced by any other offense this season. And a 1/10 of a second, like that's an eternity as far as like being able to get off the ball. And so to me, like the Eagles have to stop the run in this game. It's a huge part of their ability to try and stay in this. Dallas was unable to do it. Carolina was unable to do it. Both of those teams got blown off the ball more often than they wanted to. And that's the thing was the Saints offensive line. In pure dropback, we all had questions about what this line was going to look like. But if they're playing the way that they are, it's going to mask some of the deficiencies they have in pass protection.
The only context in which vehemently explaining that tenths of a second make a huge difference in get-off time is not deeply embarrassing.
This was where Zach would normally point to your sophomore humor. Obviously, that I don't need to be able to dive into that.
So, like, where are the weaknesses? What is the hope?
The hope is you stop the run.
Okay.
So out of this base defense, hey, the Eagles haven't been in their base defense in a couple weeks.
Like if you make Trevor Penning at right tackle have to just sit back and protect a regular drop back, he's beatable.
That's it, and that's the hope is that you stop the run, you get them into 3rd and long, into 2nd and long. They're out there in more predictable situations, but that's what happened in the final drive against the Falcons, and the Eagles were unable to convert in that situation, right? So you're just hoping that if the Eagles can do this early in the game. Can you take advantage on the road, on the turf, all that? Can you get after that offensive line?
I don't think that you've made me feel better about the Eagles' defense's chances.
I don't know. I don't think that was my goal. I don't think that. I'm just shooting you straight in terms of how we see it, and that's what I think that. Again, if you're looking at it purely on its face by looking at the raw numbers, you feel terrible about this.
Basically, the hope is, well, they can't just be this good. It's got to regress at some point.
Yes, you're banking on some regression. Yeah, right. so you look at it that way. But then also, it is the whole idea of, hey, look, they play offense a little bit differently than the Falcons in terms of how they are structurally. It's more heavy personnel, heavy bodies. The Eagles, I mean, everything they gave up last week was out of 11 personnel. And even against the Packers, a lot of it was against some of their lighter personnel. And out of nickel, the Eagles have not been able to defend the run very, very well. So if you get their base defense on the field, are they able to stop the run? Or do the Saints decide? Because that's the thing is that when the offense is operating the way that they have, all of their numbers look good.
Sure.
So like when you look at when they do run out of 11, even though they're in 11 personnel, the lowest rate of any team in the league. When they run out of 11, they've been very good. So when they say, all right, we're just going to run out of 11 in this game, even with no Taysom Hill, they might decide to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
How do the Eagles match up to that if that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of the hope is, I mean, if we can get a lead on offense, this is, you go back to the old football tenets.
Yes.
Like we can shorten this game, get them playing from behind a little bit, then maybe you get a chance.
But that's the thing is that like we like joke about that stuff as if it's like concussion elite, but there's a reason why those exist. Yes, exactly. So that would be part of the formula for this game.
All right. Well, it doesn't seem like the Eagles are facing an ordinary offense. Zach, I mean, I keep doing Zach.
Yeah,
I got to work on this. This keeps happening. I called Zach Fran at the press conference yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is a real.
How did he react?
This is a real problem in my relationship. I'm betraying my this is mistress talk.
Well, I feel like I do this to my pets all the time. I call my dog by my cat's name and my cat by my dog's name. So I don't know how that
Would you rather be the dog or the cat?
I think I'd rather be the dog.
You're a dog man, yeah.
Right.
Okay. I think Zach doesn't mind being a cat.
No, I think he absolutely would much rather be the dog.
All right. Well, speaking of things that are not ordinary, Bet365, of course. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. I know that Jamie Lynch has got the Bet365 show. He's got some bets for tonight in the Jets-Patriots game. Who do you like in that game?
Probably the Jets. We talked about that the AFC's matchup last week and Dolphins-Bills. I think the Jets come out with this one. What do you like?
I think as long as the Patriots get Christian Ellis on the field, I'm rolling with the Pats.
Got it.
It's never ordinary at Bet365. See for yourself with their SGP Sunday offer. Place a qualifying parlay bet totaling $20 or more on Sunday's NFL games, and you get up to $25 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Download the app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. They've also got a special deal for Thursday night. If you place a qualifying parlay bet totaling $20 or more on tonight's game, you can get a bonus bet for every touchdown. Terms and conditions apply there. All kinds of bonus bets coming your way on Bet365. Plus the boosts. You're not going to get a better offer. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Well, Bo, everybody needs help sometimes. We talked about the Eagles defense here this week. They might need a little bit of help, but everybody, especially in today's climate, needs a little bit of help when it comes to managing our money. And that's why I want to talk about our friends at TrueMark Financial Credit Union and introduce you to their home equity line of credit, which allows homeowners to borrow against their home equity with a variable interest rate. Now, what's great about this is that you could preserve your savings to get access to large sums of money, to access to your funds. And right now I'm talking about like those big ticket items. My wife and I, we just moved into our house a couple of years ago. And as any homeowner knows, there's always something either that's coming down the pipe or that maybe some things that you know that you want to be able to get fixed. I want to be able to redo my deck. I want to get the electrical done in the basement. You want to get landscaping work done for the backyard. You want to redo a bathroom or redo a bedroom. So with the home equity line of credit, you've got the ability to be able to plan ahead for those things. Or let's say some disaster strikes. Bo, I know this offseason you had your fridge go out on you, and that's something you weren't planning on, right? So
proves you're a real sicko to know that.
Well,
to be able to call that up.
You have to dive into that, but that's proof that I've been a long-time listener. But it could be something like education expenses for your children, or if you're just saving it for a rainy day. And you might be saying, like, Fran, is it always that serious? Is it always going to be that big ticket item? You can use TrueMark Financial's budgeting tools to save for other smaller special purchases as well. So you can transfer something as little as $5 a week, and before you know it, you've got a couple $100s, and that's more than enough for a Jason Kelce, Kelly Green jersey, or whatever you've got your eye on. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY.
All right. Let's talk about the other side of the ball.
Okay.
Eagles offense has been good, not great. Saints defense has been able to play with these advantageous game scripts, right? So Dennis Allen's, his head coach track record is not very good, but his defensive track record is quite good. What are the questions being posed to Kellen Moore and co this week?
So it's a lot of man coverage on the back end. Obviously, they will mix in zones at times, but it's a lot of man coverage, more than your typical NFL team. It is a 4-2 front. Typically, from a nickel standpoint, they play a lot of sub package. So it's a lot of nickel, a lot of dime. Will the Eagles force them to play into some base defense? They haven't played a ton of base so far just because of how lopsided these games have been. So will they play some more base? That's something will be interesting to watch, because they've got some athletic linebackers, namely in Pete Werner and Willie Gay Jr., guys that can match up in space. And so early in games, they have actually at times matched opposing teams' 11 personnel with base defense. So the Eagles, if they're without A.J. Brown again, could the Saints come out and say, hey, you know what? They want to be able to run the football, line up in base defense, and we're okay leaving Pete Werner with Britton Covey in the slot at times. Let's test that and see how that goes. That would not shock me here in this one. When they get to third down, they have a very specific identity in that it's going to play, again, a lot of man coverage on the back end, and then they run a ton of stunts up front. They love to incorporate their linebackers into the pressure package. So you'll see a linebacker walked up onto the line of scrimmage, typically over one of the guards, and then you're going to get 3- and 4-man games up front. If this sounds like an issue, that's the one issue where the Eagles offensive line has had in pass protection so far, has been with picking up some stunts at times. It hasn't been like a huge issue. Other teams have had
when they have had issues.
When they have had issues, it has typically been with picking up stunts. And so that is something they will certainly have to work on for this matchup.
Okay, so let's get concussion uncle.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, no A.J. Brown. The offensive line's been blocking their butts off in the running game. Saquon looks awesome. Let's just spam that, and maybe Devontae makes a play here or there, but let's sort of go 2021 second half of the season Eagles offense here.
I think that when you look at that, I think that's a fair way to go about it. Again, the Saints, so this under Dennis Allen, historically, this run defense has been awesome. Yes. And you think back to some of those early matchups when Dennis Allen was the defensive coordinator. He first got promoted to head coach. And the Eagles offense, you mentioned like 2021, 2020, Jalen Hurts first steps in.
Jalen Hurts' first start.
Yes. And they ran for 250 yards in that game. And then they go for the next year. And it was the same thing. Number one rushing attack versus the number one run defense. And the Eagles ran all over them. Do they go about that again? This season, their run defense numbers are outstanding. Yeah. But you went up against Carolina and you went up against Dallas. Not exactly the most awe-inspiring run games. And again, in lopsided affairs. And so to me, go at this defense, see if they can stop you with the inside run, and just go right at them. And I said this on Tuesday, the days are blurring now. I feel like the best version of this offense, the best iteration of the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles offense is a smash mouth downhill rushing attack that features Saquon, that features Jalen Hurts. I think that's the button you push early in this game. And honestly, like, keep that offense off the field the best you can.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the DNA of like Kellen Moore's DNA or the team that they have built, or at least tried to build, but it's what they have right now. It seems like the best thing they have. I mean, let's put Johnny Wilson on the field instead of Britton Covey and 11 personnel and run the ball that way.
I'm just really quickly. I think that we're starting to see a little bit of a sea change in the NFL too, in terms of who the best offenses are in football right now. If you look at it, like, pick a metric and you look at who the top offenses are, those teams are running the football at a really high rate, explosive runs, efficient runs.
Well, the NFL's cyclic, Fran.
It always comes back around, as our friend Marty Morningwig used to say. For the sickos that weren't aware of that one.
Yeah, I mean, this is not necessarily how are the Eagles going to be the best team in football, but it's how are they going to win this game on Friday or on Sunday, I kind of think.
To me, like that would be the way to do it. Now, the other way, especially without A.J. Brown, because look, this is a team, again, that likes to play a lot of man-to-man coverage. I love the way that their corners play. Their secondary. They're supposed
to get Marshawn Lattimore back.
Lattimore should be back. So
who does that push to the bench?
I think it pushes the rookie Kool-Aid McKinstry to the bench. McKinstry got the start last week. All of these DBs are tough, competitive, in-your-face, press man coverage. Like, that's the way they play. That's the way they scout. Those are the kind of guys they bring in. And so, CJ Gardner-Johnson, like, he fit that mentality of the way that they like to play. And so I think when you look at this offensive game plan from a pass game standpoint, like, if you had A.J. Brown, all right, you got A.J., you've got Devontae, now we can, like, play matchups. Without A.J. Brown on the field, now it's all right. Devontae Smith, he's probably going to see a lot of Marshawn Lattimore in this game. That would be my guess. And so then it's going to be Paulson Adebo on Jahan Dotson. Like, I think New Orleans is starting to feel pretty good about those matchups in the pass game. So now it comes down to, do you have the play concepts? Are you going to run these mesh concepts and other man-beating plays to be able to just get somebody open from the play design, as opposed to just say, like, we need you to go win? I think in the game the other night, it wasn't as many like, oh, this was a really creative play design from the Eagles in this one. The Eagles the Falcons played a ton of zone coverage. Hey, let's just lean on our guys to be able to create some separation here. I think in this one, you might have to get a little bit more creative with how you get those guys open.
I mean, that sounds an awful lot like the 2023 offense to me when you're describing last week, right?
It was not like the game wasn't there weren't plays in that game against the Falcons where I was like, oh, that's a fun design.
Yeah.
Whereas in week one, there were a bunch where I was like, oh, this is
but why not? They had extra time for that game.
Was
it as simple as losing AJ late in the week?
That's the only thing I would point to.
So maybe that is the hope, is that
you had the full.
They were. I mean, it's still a short week this week,
yes,
but they still get to fully put a game plan together. They were a little bit playing with their hands tied behind their back. They had already put the game plan in potentially.
Yeah.
And had to go back to some staple stuff.
If you want to be an optimist about it,
If you want to be an optimist about it, and now maybe Kellen gets to cook, knowing what he's dealing with, and maybe we will see some stuff schemed up for Dallas Goedert, getting him in space.
I think that's got to be a priority. Because when we talked about the inability to find for the football to find him at times where he's not the primary guy in the progression, he's not the second guy in the progression. I think back again to that 2022 version of the offense. Think of all the RPOs that went to Dallas Goedert. A lot of it, like him in the flat, and they've got that in the playbook. We saw it this summer.
Why does the RPO game seem broken?
I feel like that can be a timing and rhythm thing with the RPOs. We've seen 3 ineligible downfield called this past week. I believe there was one in the Green Bay game, right? So we've seen a couple of those called. Look, I don't think that's going to go away. I think that's going to be a part of the offense, and it should be. I don't think that you want to be able to throw those out, but it certainly is a timing and rhythm thing right now that those guys have to be able to work out.
Okay, and of course, there's even more of that insight on allphly.com, which you can read. Fran's breakdowns, the one up today on the offense, and you did a separate video on those ineligible man.
Yes, I did a whole thing on the just those 3 penalties and what went into them, how can they fix it, those kind of things.
Okay, good stuff. We're gonna hear from Zach Berman in a little bit, and then we'll get to Swooper after that. We got a super chat from Chase Daniel Plainview, who says, "What will be Derek Carr's MVP odds after this game?" I wonder what they are now.
We'll have to go to Bet365, figure that one out.
I guess so. P odds. I got nothing. Okay, so let's stick with the offense and a few other things like Dotson. Do you have any hope there?
I mean, right now he's essentially a decoy in the offense.
Right.
Yeah,
He's playing a lot.
Right, he's playing a lot. But we said this, and this was when AJ Brown was in the game.
Yeah.
Having a guy like Dotson allows you to move around Devontae Smith and AJ Brown.
Right.
And he can be like the sacrificial lamb to line up against a team.
Well, it was funny last week in the first half. They're playing Britton Covey on the outside just so they can get Devontae inside. It seemed like, and then once the game got out of like the opening script, it was like, okay, let's just put Devontae outside.
And that's where like a player like a Covey, where you see those limitations pop up. And honestly, it was on that final interception where he's in the slot and he's running a deep crossing route against the slot corner and D. Alford, your boy. And look, he's not a guy.
My guy smothered him.
Well, that's the thing is Covey can work within like this 10 to 12 yard area. If you're running like deep crossers with Covey, like he's not going to create that level of separation where Jalen's going to feel comfortable delivering that football.
So what I'm hearing is you're conceding that I was right about D. Alford?
That he can outrun Britton Covey in 40 yards of space. Yes, I will concede that one.
Thank you very much. Who knows ball now?
Well, it's not, maybe that'll get you a swooper point next week.
Well, yeah, we're tied. So.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. More on that in a little bit.
All right. Zach is on his way and we'll be here. We're going to talk to Zach about what we've heard from the coordinators.
Yep.
First of all, continue to enjoy the Vic Fangio experience.
Yes, very much so.
As a coordinator. What did you make of Nick Sirianni's answers yesterday about remaining in his conviction about kicking the field goal? Doesn't believe that up 3 is better than up 6 because in his experience as an offensive coach, there's more pressure when you need a touchdown, and that the publicly available analytic charts might tell you to go for it there, but the chart that he goes by says, I'm gonna kick it here.
Yeah, I was surprised by those comments. I think when, especially the latter point where he's like, hey, I'm looking at how coaches in the last 10 years have acted in those situations. That's like the kind of getting in your own echo chamber of, oh yeah, like all of my friends think that this is good. Whereas there's a different worldview on a given situation. I think when you look at the way that organization is structured, the way that they prioritize certain things, like they want to be analytically forward, especially when it comes to the game day decision making. And so, as we've touched on in the post game show, as we talked about Tuesday, as the guys talked about yesterday, as we'll continue to talk about, I disagree with the inability to go for it there on 4th down and settle for the 3 points.
Yeah, I'm trying to not make that decision on its own, like completely change the way I feel about the entire season, but it kind of does. It really does. And I'm like, I get a little bit more distance from it and it's still just lingering there. Like, I'll tell you what, last night, and we're going to get to Zach in a second, I had a lovely evening last night. I got the kids to bed.
Okay. What'd you guys do?
Saddled up with a nice book. And I was reading The Franchise.
It's a great book.
Book by Zach Berman. I got an advanced copy. Pretty nice flex for me.
Is this it?
This is it. You can see the rabbit ear there. I'm already halfway through. Started last night. And I'm reading the Jeffrey Lurie chapter. And everything that Jeffrey Lurie cares about, everything he says, we don't care that all of these great hires they've had, we don't care that nobody else is interviewing these guys. They're not chasing the groupthink. We know that they care about being analytically inclined. Do not make any move because it's like short-term really popular. All of these things keep coming up, and I cannot get away from, like, I don't know that Nick knows who he's coaching for. And you are emboldened to do those things. And as I said the other day, you've got Nick Foles in the building. The perfect example of what happens when you follow that process. And for him to make that move, knowing that also there's the, let your nuts hang. There's players, not plays, like know your personnel. You've got a good offense. You got a bad defense. You're gonna put the game on the defense. You're gonna not just lean into having this great offensive line and this running back that you paid $15 million for. You're not gonna trust the analytics.
2 tries to get 3 yards with Saquon.
2 tries to get 3 yards, and then you just think about it like very simple math wise. I know that Danis took us to the whole thing, but
right.
The only way you lose the game is if you give up a touchdown. So if let's say at worst you've got a 50% chance of converting. You lose that, then they still got to go 90 yards to win the game. If they don't go and they just kick a field goal, which is what you're so worried about, you still got a 50-50 chance of winning in overtime. Whereas if you just get the first down, the game is over. And then you're going to give them the ball in the 30 to score a touchdown. Now, the one thing that Nick said that I did think was like semi-convincing and at least somewhat compelling was that in that game when they struggled on defense, they struggled to stop the run. They hadn't struggled against straight drop back passing, so he trusted them on that front. But they hadn't really seen that, right? It is very hard for me to think like the decision to make Nick the CEO head coach, that he's going to like improve on these ancillary things. It already hasn't worked out. The season's not over. There's all kinds of things, but if the Eagles do not have a successful season, to me that is going to be like the moment that we all point back to as like this was the sign.
There's 15 games left.
It's
right?
crazy.
Right. There's 15
Week
games
two.
left.
I don't want to be
yes.
too depressing.
But what that's the thing is that chances are there's going to be another situation that's akin to this.
Yeah.
How different does that go?
Yeah.
And then we'll see, like, were there conversations today that, maybe alter that thinking moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we know that they have those conversations. I don't know what the schedule is like on a short week when they have those conversations between Nick and Jeffrey, but I would imagine this is a communication that they're having at some point. All right, we have the man himself, Zach Berman from the NovaCare Complex, fresh out of the locker room. Look at that tight, fresh book fade that he's got. The haircut is very sharp today. Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You call it first off, I appreciate the product placement, right? I mean, I'm trying to be modest, but I appreciate the product placement there. You say this is a fresh book fade. This is just a keeping up with Fran fade. That's what I call it. I mean, Bo, I love you, man, but I didn't have to keep up with your hair for the past 5 years. Now we bring Fran here. No, Bo's. I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a bad way. No, I mean it more. No, I meant it more in terms of Bo doesn't have the same type of haircut frequency. And a matter of fact, he makes fun of me for going to the barber as much as I do. So now that we got Fran here, Fran likes to keep a tight fade. So this is a keeping up with Fran fade. That's all I meant. How long is this bit going to go on? Or he's going to be out there?
I want to take the shovel out of your hands because you're just digging deeper as we keep going here.
I was trying to compliment Fran. Basically, what I was trying to do.
I'll throw you a life vest here, Zach.
Please.
So we hear from Vic Fangio and from Kellen Moore. Let's start with Vic Fangio. Obviously, going into this matchup, what was your biggest takeaway from hearing from the defensive coordinator today?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting the way he framed the pass rush conversation because he said the question was about kind of the Georgia players. The production of the Georgia players, okay, to give the context. But I said it good-heartedly. It was not meant to be a dig at all.
Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
Okay. So when he said, and by production you mean sacks and pressures, and then his answer was interesting here. He said that until we stop the run, those aren't going to come. And so I asked him why he framed it that way. Why he framed it like, until they stop the run, they're not going to get pressure on the quarterback. And his point was about teams getting into like not being in obvious passing situations, being in second and manageable and third and manageable, and the effect that has. And he talked about how like that plays right into what the Saints do. Now, I don't think that totally lines up with as we pointed out on the last drive of the game. That was an obvious passing situation, and the Eagles didn't get a pass rush there. But to his point, he believes stopping the run is like foremost in terms of fixing this defense right now.
If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Because we are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match, and do it with Indeed. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join the more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Even before I was on the show, I was a diehard here with PHLY. Premium written content for all members. And look, it's not just for my friend Bo Wulf here and for Zach Berman there on your screen, but Phillies coverage, Jim Salisbury, Charlie O'Connor with the Flyers. Flyers are kicking back up into gear. The Sixers with Derek Bodner and Devon Givens, just outstanding coverage of all of your local sports teams here. And then you get also 20% off all the live events. And speaking of events, we had this book displayed up on the desk here, the franchise, the Philadelphia Eagles, a curated history of the Birds. Well, you can join Zach Berman and other PHLY diehards for a book signing, a Q&A with food provided here at the PHLY studio, which is not over there, right here. So you can join it. Look, it's included with the ticket. You get a signed copy of the book. You get the food and drink, as I mentioned, and a Q&A with Zach. This is a diehards only event. And so you can come and join us here in the studio, meet with Zach, get a signed copy of the book, but you can only do it if you're a diehard. So not only do you get access to all events like this, you can get some deals with merch. You've got all the written content, so much at your doorstep. All you have to do is head over to allphly.com and join the best sports fans in the city.
All right, friend, do you mind asking Zach about how the locker room has gone this week, what he's heard inside there?
Zach, I do want to ask you about Kellen Moore as well, Zach. Any takeaways from the locker room?
I feel really bad. This is this was not intended the way it's being perceived at all. I was trying to compliment Frank. That's all. Okay, so you want Kellen Moore or the locker room? And there's some more Vic stuff too. But to answer Bo's question about the locker room,
Fran's question.
Some of the Fran's question about the locker room. Speaking of Devin White yesterday. He's handling this very professionally. His line I think that he used was his son can cry, not him, right? Like when things don't go his way, he's gonna do what he can to stay ready. Speaking of Bryce Huff today, Bryce Huff's sentiment overall, he said a lot of this has to be like getting used to the players that he's working with. And I asked him, because I asked him what's different rushing in Vic Fangio's scheme compared to Robert Saleh's scheme. And he said it more has to do with like the other guys, that he was with those guys for 4 years. He knew how to play off them. And his point that, I asked a follow up to that, he said that the offensive line, they know how to play with each other. Like the pass rushers need to do the same thing. So that was a sentiment there. Speaking to Darius Slay, I spoke to CJ Gardner-Johnson yesterday, and I asked him the significance of this game. And he paused. He screamed over to Slay. He said, "I'm not going to impersonate CJ Gardner-Johnson on the show," but he said, "Slay, he wants to know the significance of this game." And then, and they all started laughing. And then he basically said, he's already hated there. They traded him. He didn't leave. They traded him. So we'll see Sunday. I asked Slay about how CJ feels, and he says that it's a business, but it's personal. Slay said that he cared a lot when he went back to Detroit, but he said he doesn't kind of take things like he thinks he's a little more lighthearted than CJ might be in those situations. So I am curious how this affects CJ Gardner-Johnson. Slay had a lot of respect for for these wide receivers, for Shaheed. He saw a few years ago. Dennis Allen had a quote that defenses aren't up on Shaheed yet because he keeps getting behind them. And Slay said he's been around him, or he's kind of been aware of him for a long time. Then I also thought Jalen Hurts. We didn't talk about what Jalen Hurts said yesterday. Jalen Hurts, he took ownership for the interception. He said in that situation, with the time and the situation on the field, he didn't need to be as aggressive as he was. And he said he wants to be in those moments, and he owns that.
Go ahead.
I do want to ask you about Kellen Moore. Zach, what was your big takeaway from hearing from the offensive coordinator? Obviously, he was asked about the end of the game situation. That was the first time we've heard from him.
Yeah. A lot of his explanation was these are conversations that they have during the week, right? And that these aren't stuff that you're necessarily reacting to in real time. He said he kind of said the obvious today, as far as he's like, you can run the ball there, or you can pass it and the game's over, right? And get the first down. His implication was essentially that you don't know if you're getting the first down if you run it. He referenced what Nick referenced, that the previous two runs, how those kind of went, and the way the Falcons loaded the box there, and that they thought they could get the first down and end the game by passing it. And he's like, the risk in that situation. But these are conversations that they have during the week. So that was a big takeaway from Kellen Moore there. I asked him about that Jalen Hurts play and the Jalen Hurts interception. He said he gave, he tried to be aggressive there, making a play to Smitty. He said under 30 seconds with a timeout, there's a certain kind of operation that you have there, but he put the ball up to Devontae Smith. And his point, he didn't throw him under the bus. He said he was trying to give Devontae Smith a chance to make the play.
Fran, please read what I just texted you.
I was just texted a question, Zach. Given what we know about the things Jeffrey Lurie
I feel really bad about this. Yes.
Given what we know about the things Jeffrey Lurie cares about, having studied him for as long as you have, how do you think Nick's answers yesterday are being received in the building? End quote.
That's a great question by a great reporter, a smart person, in my opinion, the best host in the city, which I've said off the air, and I will say on the air, the best host in the city. So that's a great question. I don't think I don't think they're being received well, to be honest with you. And I don't think this is like Chip Kelly saying, I'm not the GM. Like when Chip Kelly said that, that was like a slap in the face. And it was like not taking responsibility for what was going on there. I think in this case, I think Nick's trying to project confidence, but let's kind of back up from the explanation. And, I got to imagine Jeffrey doesn't like the decision itself, knowing the way Jeffrey feels about the use of data and how that applies. And I think, when the answer to the question about what the chart said, when Nick says, well, my chart, says to kick the field goal, he basically did like the Dave Gettleman thing, where he's like, you can punch in the numbers in 20 different computers, or 20 different websites. But my chart's based on like my research and my experience. I do think that Jeffrey believes that the data, now it shouldn't be the end all be all, but I think Professor Selman outlined it well. If there is a play that decreases your win probability, that lowers your win probability, and that's not just like one. I know there's different formulas. Every place that I've looked that shows win probability shows that it went down with the field goal there. Then and you lose the game, then that is a questionable decision for sure. I frankly don't know if Jeffrey would be as upset about the pass as he would be about the field goal. That's just me guessing. I haven't spoken to Jeffrey about this. That's me guessing, because I think you saw if you saw the Manning cast, Matt Ryan's reaction right away was the play worked, right? Professor Selman, who's a really smart guy, said, like, the play worked. Now, the play literally didn't work, right? He dropped it, but the play design worked. So I think that's more intellectually, like, justifiable than going against the numbers.
Zach, this question's for me. We were talking about earlier about the matchup with the Eagles offense going up against the Saints. What's your take on A.J. Brown? Do you feel like he is definitely not playing this week? Is it that's a foregone conclusion at this point? Is there any outside chance that number 11 suits up?
Yeah, he wasn't at practice today. I don't think he would tell at least Assault or something that wasn't true. Like, I asked Nick Sirianni because, as a report, I'm not talking to AJ in the locker room. AJ's not around. I wanted Sirianni confirmation. He's the head coach, and Nick says he can't say that. But the fact that was said by AJ Brown, a couple of weeks, it would surprise me if AJ Brown is out there. So Fran, I'm operating as if he's not going to be there.
Fran, you should know that the reports from the practice field are that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is not at practice today.
That's from right now.
Yes, they're on the field at the moment. Okay. Well, I think this has been a lovely conversation. Fran, I think you should ask Zach if people are interested in learning a little bit more about the way that Jeffrey Lurie thinks about important decisions and football, if there's anywhere that people might be able to purchase something like that.
Zach, if fans wanted to learn any more about Jeffrey Lurie and his decision-making process, is there a book out there that they could purchase?
Yes, I appreciate that question. The franchise, Philadelphia Eagles, A Curated History of the Birds. It's out on Tuesday. But if you want to get it before Tuesday, you can come on tomorrow night, to Barnes & Noble on Chestnut Street. I will be having a conversation with the Hall of Famer, Ray Didinger. And I mean, just to be in Ray's presence is awesome. But conversation with Ray, and then I'll be signing books there, so you can get that. That's kind of like an early release event, if you will, at the Barnes & Noble in Center City. But the answer, I think I'm looking forward to discussing the book more next week and in the coming weeks. But I'll tell you this: the first chapter is devoted to Jeffrey Lurie, and it's the beefiest chapter in the book because he's the constant during these 25 years, right? I mean, if you look at the other executives, Joe Banner was there. He was instrumental in the foundation. Howie came on like a year into it or so, but didn't take over as GM until a little later on. Andy Reid was there 14 years. Chip Kelly 3 years. Doug Peterson 5 years. Nick Sirianni 4 years now, right? But the quarterbacks, but I can go on there too. But Jeffrey Lurie is the constant, and so I really get into Jeffrey. And I think Jeffrey was fairly candid about the evolution of the franchise during these 25 years. Some of the things that he obviously talked about what he's proud of with the franchise, but he admitted what he regrets during that time. That's in there, and I thought it was kind of an honest admission. One might say, it's with the benefit of hindsight. I mean, I'll give you guys a little tease now. I mean, he wishes that it could have worked more with it, that there could have been a resolution with Andy Reid, or that they could have kept Andy somehow. And I think there was an acknowledgement that, as Bo has said in my conversations with Bo on the air about this, that by 2012 it had kind of run its course. Right, and there was obviously a lot going on off the field as well, and the Reid family personal life. But Jeffrey said that he wishes there was a way he could have made it work to keep Andy because he's always thought the world of Andy.
All right, thanks Zach for joining us.
Zach,
and
thank
tell
you for
him
joining
we'll talk
us.
to him tomorrow.
Zach, Bo will talk to you tomorrow. You guys will be in studio together. I think so. That should make for a nice conversation.
I was simply saying that Fran has a fresh face.
Great hair.
Yeah.
I wasn't ripping on Bo's hair. Bo makes fun of me for how often I go to the barber shop. Fran is like me, gets a fresh fade. Okay, if you wear this type of hairstyle, you can't let 2 months go by without going to the barbershop. So Fran keeps a fresh fade, as I complimented him on this week. Bo does not wear that hairstyle, so Bo does not need to go to the barbershop as often. Therefore, when I said I haven't had to worry about keeping up with Bo, the suggestion was that Fran has a fresh cut more than Bo. That's all that I meant.
It's only fair after you ridiculed his fashion sense a year ago that you bring this into the discussion now. So it's it's only right.
I don't know if that.
I will say it's a good thing we pre-recorded Swooper.
Please,
I don't know how we would have gotten
please wish him good luck in today's Swooper.
Zach. Good luck at Swooper today, Zach.
So you know what? I'm just gonna give a little tease to the audience here. I'm in this room here. I'm not keeping notes. I didn't keep track of how many turkeys everybody had. So that's a little tease for. I knew how many turkeys I had. I assumed you guys will find out any minute.
Theoretically, that would also mean that either the host was not doing a good enough job updating people on how many turkeys everyone had, or someone else wasn't listening. Theoretically.
Yeah, the host is doing an outstanding job. I
was gonna let you jump in. Yes.
I'm getting a lot of texts today, and I was responding to a few texts when that was outlined, and so I own it, I wear it, and you guys will see what happens.
It's building up to be an excellent edition, week 2 of Swooper for sure.
Yeah, you can tell him.
Thank you for having me on.
He needs to leave.
Okay.
Zach, Bo said that you are good to go.
Yeah.
All right, Fran. Anything else that you would like to unpack before we do get to Swooper that was recorded an hour and a half ago?
No, I think we hit on. I'm like going through my Saints notes real quick. I am going to put together an article for the diehards over at All PHLY, just looking at all of my notes from the Saints and the keys to victory there. We talked about the stunts. We talked about winning one-on-ones in the pass game. Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about everything here for this matchup. It's not gonna be easy to go down the road and beat the Saints team. It's I think going into the season, certainly everyone had their anticipation of what this team was going to look like, but it has been far from that through the first 2 games.
I mean, are you at all worried? Like, after this is the trip to Jalen Hurts' personal hell in Tampa next week, and then it's the bye. Like, could they be? Are you worried they're going to be sitting at 1-3 at the bye, and like, what's going to happen here?
I feel good about them in Tampa. Now, that might just be my personal feelings on the Bucs. I will say, just because you brought Jalen Hurts up, we haven't really talked about Hurts today in this episode. Just because the offensive breakdown went out this morning. Yes. I put out a lot of those cuts yesterday, the film breakdowns. It's a lot of Jalen Hurts discourse right now, and I really feel like, however you feel about Jalen, when you watch the film of Monday's game, you are going to see whatever you want to see, because there's examples of everything. We talked about like the breaking the pocket and ability to go through progressions. There's a lot of examples. Me personally, I think there are more examples of him than not, of him like going through progressions, doing what he needs to do. Were there times where he left early, prematurely, before he should have? Yes. But I think that's kind of par for the course at quarterback. Like I posted.
But also like less than in week 1, it felt like.
Yeah, but I think that might go to like the changes we saw structurally in the offense too, like in terms of like the play design. There were more cases where I wrote in the notes like, oh, this looked more like last year, like from Jalen, not even necessarily from like the play design. There's more like than what we saw a week ago. But I will say too, like I posted a clip on Monday of a Steve Spagnuolo blitz against the Bengals and Joe Burrow, and a lot of people was like, oh, like what a great blitz from from Kansas City. But there were so many, because a lot of Bengals people picked it up, and so many Bengals fans were just like ripping Burrow. Oh, the ball should have come out. Like, what is he doing? He does not see the field well. I kind of think that's just kind of like when we're so close to watching one team and one quarterback that we're very quick to like kind of jump on it and not understand that that's kind of how it goes across the league. Josh Allen gets ridiculed. Go right down the list of all the highest paid quarterbacks. It's a tough position. It's a tough position to play.
But you generally feel that he's playing well enough.
I do, yeah. That's right. And I feel like that is not. I don't know. Like, do you feel like that's the not the consensus? Obviously, there is no consensus. But do you feel like that's the majority opinion?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right that people are sort of in their positions. I thought he played a much better game than he did in week 1. I think I agree that with what Zach said earlier in the week. Like, I think we probably didn't give him enough guff for the interception. Like, that is a really bad play. given the stakes of the moment. But otherwise, like that felt much more like a game where it was like early last season where there wasn't a lot there for him in the offense and he was doing everything that he could for the most part.
Yeah, I think that, watching, and look, I'm not watching all 32 teams intently every single week, but just like buzzing through the first 2 games of the season, the first 2 weeks of the season rather, and looking at different offenses. Like this is the kind of stuff that happens. It's not going to be perfect, especially for a young quarterback, still a young quarterback, going into a new system.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll do it for the live portion of this episode, but we can turn it now to week 2 of Swooper Soarcasting. Fran Duffy, Zach Berman, Bo Wulf with Deniz putting in his submissions and Julia running the auction. We take it to you now, and after that, we'll see you tomorrow. Everybody, you know what time it is. It is time to close the show with the second week of Swooper Soarcasting in the PHLY 2024 era. Zach, you have your hoarded turkeys, 31 with which to work today. I have 26. Fran has 18. And, of course, we are all tied up with a third of a win after the three-way tie last week. What do you mean?
I mean, there was a ruling from our professor from Deniz saying that I came out with the win.
I mean, it didn't happen on the show, so as far as I'm concerned, it's not canon.
I mean, look, the film speaks for itself. True Media speaks for itself. Our friends at True Media, that was a completed play-action pass from under center to Saquon Barkley down the goal line.
Nobody bought that as play action. That wasn't play action.
True Media did. So did Deniz. So did myself. I think I earned the win.
I mean,
I think he gets the win as well.
I think if it happens, in the depths of the internet where it's ruled, that doesn't count. This show is what counts.
So we'll let the record show that Bo Wulf is not in favor of fair and reasonable voting and election process.
I mean, this
he
wasn't
contests ballots quite a bit.
This was completely subjective.
Oh, it's not subjective. It's a completed under center play action pass by definition.
If you can feel good taking the victory on the same play that cost the Eagles the game later in the game, then that's on your conscience.
Hey, look, because that one cost. If they had completed that pass, I would have won handily. But no, I will definitely take the win under any circumstances.
All right.
I'm sure
now we know
this week.
who cheats to win. All right.
And the voting's only legitimate if he wins. That's
right,
that's kind of the precedent here. Yeah.
Don't get me started, Zach. Don't get me started. All right, Fran, you're going to go first this week, and if you're new to Swooper Soarcasting, how dare you? But we've got 12 items up for bid here, and we're trying to acquire items that we think have a chance of happening in the game on Sunday against the Saints. So, Fran, you get to go first.
All right. So now that we have solidified the fact that I did get the win last week, let's now go to
it's like liquefied.
Item number 1, and that's the Eagles as a team run for at least 150 yards this week against the Saints. Now, the Eagles ran for 144 in week 1 against Green Bay. They ran for 186 in week 2 against Atlanta. This is a big one in terms of this matchup. The Saints have historically had a really good run defense under Dennis Allen, and the Eagles have typically been up for the challenge. You go back to 2020, the Eagles ran for 246 in that week 14 game. In week 11 of 2021, they ran for 242 yards. Those are terrible numbers from a Saints standard. So will the Eagles run for just 150 here in this game as a team?
You start the bidding at 1?
I will start the bidding at 1.
I'm going to go to 4.
3.
Bo's got 4.
4 to Bo.
Going once?
4 to
Five.
Bo once.
Ooh,
Oh,
5
5 to
to
Zach.
ZB
5 to
with
Zach.
a 5.
The heavy
Five
hitter
to
with the
Zach.
extra,
Big turkeys.
He's got this extra turkeys.
This
5 turkeys to Zach.
fresh
Going
cut
once.
that we've been talking about all show.
Going twice.
6.
6.
Ooh, 6.
6 turkeys to Bo. 6 turkeys to Bo. Going once. Going
can have it.
twice.
All right.
Sold
I
to
like
Bo.
that.
I do feel like this is one where it really comes down to how you feel about this game and how you feel about it going. Carolina ran for 58 in week 1. Dallas ran for 68 last week against the Saints defense. Obviously, the Saints were up early and took the running game out of it for both of those teams. And so if you feel like the Eagles are going to be in it, then I think the 150 is definitely hittable.
Yeah, I don't know if, because we're pre-recording this, I don't know if we have talked about this yet, but I really feel like the Eagles' success in this game is to go full 2021
Lean on it.
and lean on it in this game. I think that's what I would do. I mean, the way that their offensive line is blocking, the way that Saquon is running, the obviously no AJ Brown, and the potentially shortening the game in this matchup, it strikes me as like that's what their game plan should be this week. So
yeah, we show that. To me, I would agree with you, but whether it plays out that way,
of course,
we shall see.
Of course. All right, Zach, you get to go next.
Okay, my first swooper today is CJ Gardner-Johnson is flagged for a personal foul, and I will start the bidding at 1.
Now, interesting, you didn't make this either he is flagged or draws a flag, but this is specifically him.
Specifically him, correct. I thought the drawing a flag would be subjective.
Right.
I mean, was the one last week subjective?
That one was not subjective, but there are times when it is subjective, right? Okay. So I didn't want something that had to be adjudicated in any nefarious way. So
you like adjudications. All right.
I'll go with 2.
Two to Fran.
3.
Oh,
3.
3 to Zach. 3 to Zach. 3 turkeys to Zach. Going once.
I'm good.
3 turkeys to Zach going twice. Sold.
Maybe it's an unsportsmanlike.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
And by the way, offsetting personal fouls count because he's still levied for 1. So if both of them okay. I want to make that clear.
All right, my first one is a Taysom Hill poo-poo platter for you, Zach.
I like a poo-poo platter.
Taysom Hill does any of these 3 things. A, throws a pass. B, catches a 1-yard pass, which is what he did in each of the first 2 games. Or fights CJ Gardner-Johnson. And that is completely subjective and up to my interpretation. And I have to start the bidding at 1.
I'll go for 2, just to get it going.
Taysom Hill on the injury report may not play in the game.
Yep.
Going once.
I'm not swimming in these waters.
You said 2, Fran?
Yep.
2 to me. Yeah.
2 to Fran.
I'll take it. I'll take it for 2.
All right. Taysom poo-poo.
Taysom poo-poo for me.
You're down to 16. Zach's got 28. I've got 20 as we prepare for the first Daniz auction.
Oh, here we go.
Bit of a smug look on Zach's face right now.
It's a smug look. To describe as a lot of things. Smug is not one of them. Yeah. A smug look. Be careful with the adjectives you assign. Nothing smug here.
No, it's a threatening look.
Okay, Janiz's. Item 4. This is a normal auction. The Eagles defense holds the Saints to under 50% in converting first downs before third down. In parentheses, he says Saints offense is first in the league at 58%. Eagles defense is dead last in the league, also at 58%. League average is 46%.
2.
2 turkeys to Bo.
I'll go 3.
3 to Fran.
It's going to be a 2-man race because we know that Zach's going to stay out of the Daniz one.
3 to Fran going once.
I'll go 4.
Oh, 4 to Bo.
I think it's possible.
4 to Bo. 4 to Bo going once.
4.
Oh.
Okay, I don't feel great about that, but
I couldn't let you have it for 2.
What a smug bid that was.
All right, go ahead, Fran.
All right, so for my second one, we got another poo-poo platter.
Oh.
All right, so
I love a poo-poo platter.
All right, any of the following 3 things happen in this game.
Ooh.
Jahan Dotson scores a touchdown. Bryce Huff gets credited with a TFL, or Jordan Davis is credited with at least a half sack. Can any of those 3 things happen in this game? I will start the bidding at 1.
2.
2.
Ooh.
Who got that one?
I think Bo got it in
Bo
there
got
first.
that.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Okay. A little home cooking. 3.
I'll go 4 here. Kind of like the Jordan Davis aspect of this.
Yeah, what do you think is the most likely here? Do you think the Jordan Davis?
I think the Davis
Dotson-
or Huff. Honestly, I think the Davis or Huff one is possible.
I kind of think the
Dotson.
Dotson.
I'll go 5.
Oh, 5 to Zach. 5 to Zach going once.
5 to Zach.
5 to Zach going twice. 5 to Zach sold.
I like those 3-way items. Those are always good.
I know you do.
Huff TFL, Davis half sack. Yeah,
All right, so
that's a pretty good one.
Where are we at, turkey
He's
wise?
at 23. You and I both have 16. It's now Zach's nomination.
He has 23. Okay.
Yes.
My nomination is Britton Covey has more targets than Jahan Dotson. And I will start the bidding at 1.
3.
I'll go 4.
4 to Fran. 4 to Fran going once. 4 to Fran going twice. Oh, sold to Fran for 4 turkeys.
All right.
It's a good one.
All right. I feel pretty good about that one.
All right, my next one. Bryce Huff is 4th on the team in snaps at the edge rusher position. So last week he was not, but if you expect that his playing time is going to dwindle, he's going to drop behind Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham. And I'm going to start the nomination at 3 here. Now maybe Jalix Hunt goes ahead of him and he drops to 5th. Maybe he's inactive.
Yeah, is it at least 4th?
No, this is exactly 4th.
Exactly 4th. I'll go 4.
4 to Fran. 4.
Zach's not buying
You're
it.
getting good buys here, Fran.
Zach's not
I
buying
like
this
the
one.
Covey Dotson one.
4 to Fran going once. 4 to Fran going twice.
I'm going to go 5.
Oh, 5 to Bo.
Kind of let you
All
have
right.
it for 5. That's a good
5
one.
to Bo
It's a
going
little
once.
too specific for my liking, but
5 to Bo going twice.
I'll take it for 6.
Oh!
I'll take that for 6.
6 to Fran.
I'm going to give it to you.
Surprised
all
look
right.
on Zach's face right now.
How dare you?
Big spending right there.
All right, you've got 6 left, Fran.
Okay.
Zach's got 23. I've got 16.
I've got 6 left.
We go to Deniz's number 2.
Oh, my bad. Okay. Also a normal auction.
Thank you.
Item number 8. At some point, a player on either team steps on any part of the Saints logo at midfield with the ball in his hands on a completed pass play in which he is the receiver.
Okay.
Okay.
At some point, a player on either team steps on any part of the Saints logo at midfield with the ball in his hands on a completed pass play in which he is the receiver.
Interesting. So that means that if there's a hook and ladder and it's the pitch man
Right.
who steps on it, that does not count.
He's not. Yes,
He's not the
He's
receiver.
not the intended receiver. Correct.
Yeah.
Now you're
So in
taking a
that
look.
one sense, I
Now
wanted to
Fran
see,
is
yeah.
taking a look at how big this fleur de lis is.
Yeah. So
It's actually not. There are some spaces in there that could make it difficult.
the surface area is not great here.
Yeah, it's not. It's not as huge as some others.
It's from the 45 to the 45 at its widest point, but that's a
But
skinny.
it's
that's-
narrow.
It's very narrow.
This is the analysis you're only getting on the PHLY Eagles show.
I'm going 1.
1 turkey.
I'll go
to Bo.
2.
2 to Zach.
Oh, big spender.
Oh.
2 to Zach.
One team doesn't necessarily operate in the middle of the field. I'll leave
true.
this one alone.
Yeah, I mean, I want to drive the price up a little bit, but I don't really want this one.
2 to Zach. 2 to Zach going once, going twice.
We're back to the smug look on Zach.
You said it, not me.
Discount shopping. I like it.
All right.
It's like one of those.
All right,
That's when you
that's
get a promo
21.
code on a website. Yeah,
What did he say?
It's the promo code.
it's like when you get a promo code on a website, right? You can shop in the discounts. I love it.
All right, Fran's last one.
My last one. We're going back to CJ Gardner-Johnson here.
Wow, a lot of the CJGJ love.
The broadcast shows any footage or pictures of CJ Gardner-Johnson as a New Orleans Saint. Now, this can include draft day picture, practice footage. Doesn't necessarily need to be him in a Saints uniform, but just anything from his time during the Saints. He was there from 2019 until 2021 after being a fourth-round pick out of the University of Florida. I will start the bidding at 1.
What level crew do we have for this game, TV-wise?
You know what?
Greg Olson.
Is it Greg Olson?
Yeah, Greg Olson. Yeah, Joe Davis and Greg Olson.
All right, I'm going to go 3 here then.
Good, big production staff. I like the way you think.
Better
there.
production staff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is no.
I'm going 4.
Schlereth game.
Yeah.
Wow. For Zach.
4 to Zach. 4 turkeys to Zach.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 5.
5 to Bo.
Ooh.
5 to
Stretching me
Bo.
out here. Let's go 6.
Oh, 6 to Zach.
Wow.
6 to Zach. 6 to Zach going once. 6 to Zach going twice. Sold.
It's
All
4
right.
items for Zach. Heavily invested in CJ Gardner-Johnson
Yeah.
for this week.
You're down to 15.
Yeah,
turkeys, Zach.
I don't love that one there, but my logic there, I have 2 ways of looking at this. Number one, I'm afraid that Deniz is going to have an auction, the third auction, which is going to require me to spend turkeys. So I don't want to have such a deep pocket of turkeys for the final bidding. Okay. And I'm expecting CJ Gardner-Johnson to be a big figure in this game.
Okay. Your last one, Zach.
All right, I'm up. Yep. Okay. So about an hour from New Orleans on Saturday is LSU UCLA. Okay. There might be a person among us here who is taking that trip, wants to see Baton Rouge on a Saturday, right? And so here's the question.
Julia, congratulations.
There are more points scored in Eagles Saints than LSU UCLA. And to give you some context here, the over-under of Eagles Saints is 49.5. The over-under in LSU UCLA is 56.5. So you're looking right now, at a bit of a spread there. But you don't know what kind of game LSU is going to be. This Eagles game could be a high-scoring game. UCLA doesn't have a great offense.
What are you starting the bidding at?
I will start the bidding on 1.
2.
Go 3.
Ooh, did not expect
3.
that. Interesting.
3 to Fran.
Okay.
3 to Fran going once.
4.
3. Oh, 4 to Zach.
You
4
got
to
me.
Zach. 4 to Zach going once. 4 to Zach going twice. Sold to Zach for 4.
Bidding against Vegas here.
All right. My last one. At any point in this game, either team converts a third down of 15 yards or more to go. With 1 is my nomination. Yes. 3rd and 15 plus
3rd and 15
for
plus.
either team converted.
I'll take 2.
2 turkeys to Fran. 2 to
Zach?
Fran.
I have a number, and I'm very close to that number, and I'm not touching it right now. So
Oh, he's got his
to
number.
Fran going
He's got his
once.
number.
He's got principles, that man.
2 to Fran going
Yes.
twice. Is it sold? Sold.
All right, it's sold. 3rd and 15 plus for Fran. He's got 4 turkeys left. Zach's got 11. I've got 16 before we hit the final Daniz.
Okay, item 12. This is the equal pay sealed bid auction again.
Okay,
All
same
players must submit sealed bids. The highest bidder wins the item, but all bidders pay whatever the second highest bid is. Players can borrow
one.
turkeys from.
all bidders
Oh, this is
pay
Oh,
whatever.
is this different than last time?
Wait, so
Yeah.
hold on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to read it because
Oh,
this means
gosh.
that Zach is going to have to pay.
This is an exasperating
Yes.
Zach look.
Yes.
Okay.
yes, this was my fear.
Oh,
This
no.
was my
Okay.
fear. Yes.
I didn't read this ahead of time. Sorry. Okay. Equal pay sealed bid auction. All players submit sealed bids. The highest bidder wins the item, but all bidders pay whatever the second highest bid is.
Okay.
Players can borrow turkeys from next week to bid. If there is a tie for the highest bid, each player involved in the tie gets an equal share of the point if the item hits.
Wait, I just want to clarify. I just want to clarify. If you win, you're only paying what the second bidder is, right?
Correct.
Correct.
I love this one.
I don't get it at all.
Yeah. So
Okay, so
we write down our bids,
Yeah.
and everybody pays whatever the second highest bid is, and whoever has the highest bid is the one who actually gets the item. But everybody's
Yeah,
paying
still
whatever
has
the
to
second highest
pay.
bid is.
Correct.
Yeah.
oh man.
Okay.
All right, what do we got?
All right. An Eagles edge rusher records at least half a sack. It, parentheses, does not have to be aligned as an edge rusher on the play. So if BG gets a sack when aligned inside, that counts.
Oh, interesting. Okay. At least half a sack.
At least half a sack. An Eagles edge rusher records at least half a sack. Okay, Zach's in. Fran's in.
All right.
Bill, you wrote yours down?
Yeah, I wrote mine down.
Okay.
All right. You want to read them?
All right. Fran says 4. Zach is at 11.
I have 40.
Oh,
So everybody's
Wait.
paying 11.
Wait, how can you get 40?
You can borrow from
He
next
said you
week.
could borrow from next week. I have 16 turkeys left and 24 from next week.
Shit! I didn't get that part.
oh.
So everybody pays 11 turkeys. Zach is down to
Damn it.
0.
Oh, wow.
Fran is down to -7, and I'm down to 5, and I have the.
I didn't get the borrow from next week. All right, good job.
Well, it's good that you didn't, Zach, because if you did, you would have borrowed from next week, but you still wouldn't have had enough as me.
Yes.
So we would have all been paying whatever you borrowed.
Okay.
He says until so now.
I'm good. Sorry.
Zach, I
40
purposely
things going
went
on.
low thinking that you were just going to go very, very low here. So I'm putting this on you.
I didn't get the next week, so I thought I was going to win this one. I thought I would just go to max and I would win it. Yeah.
But you didn't even have the max.
No.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh,
All right.
we gotta let him get to the locker room.
We got to let him get to
give him,
Vic
gotta give
Fangio
him
is
that.
starting in 10 minutes.
Yes.
So let's let him go. Zach, thank you so much. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. You can go while I read these off just to close it out. Fran has the Taysom Hill poo-poo platter. He also has Britton Covey has more targets than Jahan Dotson. Bryce Huff finishes 4th on the team in snaps for edge rushers, and a 3rd and 15 plus is converted, and you're down 7 turkeys for next week.
Yeah.
Zach has the C.J. Gardner-Johnson personal foul, the poo-poo platter of Jahan Dotson touchdown, Huff TFL, or Jordan Davis half sack. A receiver in this game catches the ball and has the ball on the Saints logo. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is shown at any point in the broadcast as a member of the Saints, and the Eagles and Saints combined for more points than LSU and UCLA. He's got 0 turkeys left over.
It's a big week for Zach. It's a lot of entries.
It's a lot of entries for
Yeah.
Zach. He knew. He did know that something nefarious was coming
Yeah, but he didn't.
from Diniz, but he still wasn't
Did not
prepared
play it
for
well.
what it was going to be. And then I have only 3 items. The Eagles run for at least 150 yards as a team. The Eagles defense holds the Saints to under a 50% series conversion rate. And any Eagles edge rusher has at least a half sack in this game. So there you go. And I've got 5 turkeys left over.
I've got -7.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. We look forward to Deniz's review of how that was handled on tomorrow's show at 2 o'clock when
Maybe.
Zach will be in studio. Maybe. And that'll do it. So thanks, everybody, for watching and listening today. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.